What's up guys? In this video, you're going to be learning how to stay in control of your emotions at the poker tables and how to avoid tilting, whether you're playing live poker or online poker. As you're about to discover, there's a difference between what you experience as a live player compared to what you experience as an online player, and you've got to develop a certain set of sub-skills in order to excel in each of those environments. Now, I've been teaching this skill, which I call emotional regulation, to my poker athletes for the past 8 months now, and I've got a mixed group of some live players and some online players. And when we get together on our weekly coaching sessions, very often they bring forward different cocktails of emotions and situations they're experiencing, and a lot of the differences comes from what we're about to discuss today. All right, so although as a poker player you want to have control of your emotional state, you want to be fully engaged in what you're doing, how we get to that end goal of being in that state differs. All right, so we're going to go on a deep dive today, the live games compared to online games, and what happens emotionally as you're playing those games. So first of all, the pace of the games is different. So live games are very slow and online games are very fast. By this, I'm talking about the speed at which you're playing hands and the speed at which you're processing information. I don't know how many hands per hour get played on average these days in a live game, but online, it's exponentially more. It could be 10x more if you're playing a lot of tables. So we've got a slow pace live, and we've got fast online. Now this matters because it's going to impact what we can do when things happen. When events are unfolding at the poker tables, when things are happening at high speed, like online, we don't have as much time on our hands to do stuff. Whereas live, because we have so much more time, we can do things differently. All right, I'm going to show you how that works in terms of emotions. All right, next thing I want to cover is emotions whilst playing live change quite slowly, quite infrequently. All right, so if you put yourself in a very good emotional state, you're feeling focused and ready to play live, a few bad hands might go against you, but generally you're going to be able to keep yourself in that good state. Unless a lot of bad situations happen, which will take probably multiple hours, you're going to be keeping your emotional state quite static. On the flip side, when you're playing online, because it's so fast, your emotional state is going to change quite frequently. Because we're interacting with our environment, and because the environment creates a trigger response, which I call trigger reaction, like almost like trigger stimulus response, we have so many opportunities for our emotional state to change. So for example, say I'm playing online and I'm feeling great, and I load up 6 tables, and then within 30 minutes, I'm in 6 spots on rivers, and all happen at the same time. 2 of them, I make potential blunders, and I lose all 6 pots. That happens very, very quickly, and before you know it, I might be feeling frustrated, overwhelmed, annoyed. So just 20, 30 minutes earlier, I was feeling great. Because so much has happened and I haven't had time to process it, my emotional state has just changed. Whereas if I'm playing live, it'd be one hand, then another hand, and you've got a lot more time on your hands, which we'll go into. All right, but for first, emotions change infrequently live. And frequently. So we have, in general, your emotional states changing slower whilst you're playing live, less fluctuations in your emotional state based on the fact that things aren't happening as quickly, whereas online, things are fast-paced and your emotions are reflecting that. As a result of this speed change, it's easier to spot when you're in a compromised emotional state playing live, and it's harder to spot when you're in a compromised emotional state whilst playing online. All right, think about it. It's very, very, very fast paced. Online, you might be in a heightened emotional state, but not notice because you've got 5 decisions going on. Whereas if I just had a bad beat playing live, I know I'm annoyed right now. My mind's going over it. I'm going, this motherfucker, how'd he get me? I'm very aware that my emotional state has changed. All right, so because of the speed of information, it's easier to spot when we're playing live, and it's harder to spot whilst playing online. Now this really, really impacts our ability to do things with the emotions. So because when we're playing live, we've got a lot of time on our hands, and because we're playing online, we don't, but we're in like a very different situation. One's this like, okay, what can I do in 3 to 5 seconds? And the other one is, okay, I've got a bit of time to handle that emotion and deal with it. And we're going to go, as we come into the key skills you need, you'll see why this really, really matters in terms of the strategies you use whilst dealing with emotions. All right, next point that's really relevant is in live games, we need to hide our emotions. All right, we can't be an open book. We can't just be like, oh, I'm feeling annoyed right now, I'm going to start lashing out. You might be able to occasionally vent your anger at a spot, but in general, you're hiding your emotions to not give off information. All right, whereas on the flip side, in online games, we can express our emotions. We can punch a table. We can yell at the screen. We can berate our opponents as much as we want in the confines of our own home. All right, so we can hide emotions. We can hide emotions here, and we can express here. Now think about that. Think about that in terms of two skill sets. One, this one you're always trying to put on a good face, your poker face, and not express stuff. This one, you can be a bit of a maniac, right? Some online players will, just be very, very angry at times, frustrated, and they'll vent that, all right? So you can't do that if you're playing live. Well, you can, but it'd be so minus EV to be constantly expressing emotions that you'd very quickly learn to start hiding them. All right, so we've got this whole cocktail of slow events, easy at the spot, and have to hide emotions. And then here we've got fast events, emotions changing frequently, but we can express it. All right, so it's a very, very different landscape. All right, final point we need is in live games, because of this extra time, we can process the emotional state, which we're going to go into in a second, and then move on. All right, so we can process it and then move on. I'll come back to that in a second. Whereas online games, we need to let things go quickly. We just need to let it go. If it's a bad beat, let it go. Bad beat, again, let it go. Keep losing, let it go. All right, so when things are coming up, we've got to get good at letting things go. Now, this is super important when we're thinking about emotions, because if you try to process emotions every situation when you're playing poker online, you're going to literally negatively impact every decision going forward. So let's say if I notice I'm feeling frustrated and I'm playing 4 tables and I'm being frustrated because of a bad beat scenario that's just happened, and I'm trying to process that. I'm trying to let my body feel it. I'm trying to let it play out. I'm trying to understand what's going on. Beep, 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 beep. There's all sorts going on. I haven't got time for that. If anything, I just go, let that go. In game, let it go. You can return back to that situation, return back to what led you to feel frustrated, but it's a much better skill to go, all right, I feel frustrated, drop it. Drop the story narrative in my mind, let it go, move on. However, when you're playing live, you've got plenty of time to process it. You're almost not going to be able to just get on with the next hand anyway, because it's going to take time to be dealt in, and you've got time to just go, oh, I feel frustrated. Oh, I'm not feeling very good right now. I'm going to check in. I'm going to process what happened. I'm going to acknowledge this has annoyed me. This event has triggered me, and I'm going to process that and let that pass through. All right, we're going into how that works in the key skills section. So when it comes to playing live, we're going to have 2 very different skills that we need, sub-skills of emotional regulation, compared to when we're playing online. All right, and the first skill to allow us to be able to process information and emotional states in a good way is we need a skill called introspection. All right, I'll write that down now. And that is the ability to put your attention on your internal states and acknowledge how you're feeling. As poker players, we very often spend a lot of our time in the mind trying to analyze, solve problems, but if your emotional state has changed, the first thing is you've got to spot that. You've got to spot, I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling fearful or annoyed, whatever it is, you've got to understand that internal feeling has changed. And you've got to go into the body and really start to get to terms with what that emotion is. Oh, I'm feeling a bit of tightness in the chest. I feel a bit of, my fists are clenching a bit. My body temperature feels a bit hotter. Introspection is all about almost like scanning your inner landscape, all right? You can then start to introspect what thoughts you're having alongside that emotion, all right? So for example, let's say it's a river scenario, guy hits a 2-outer on me, and I feel angry, I feel annoyed. So I do some introspection, and I see I've got a lot of tension in the body, my hands are clenched, and I feel heat in my body. So I'm scanning in there. I then look at introspection in my thoughts, and I see that I'm telling myself a story. This guy's so lucky. This motherfucker, how did he get that again? Why me? All right, so I'm introspecting, I'm watching a process unfold, a physical reaction in the body and feelings that I'm noticing, and my mind telling a story. All right. Now I need to get good at this game of processing that and dropping that, almost like letting go the same way as an online player would. But I've got time to sit with it. I can sit with it. Go, that emotion doesn't feel good. Why doesn't it feel good? It doesn't feel good to lose that hand. I can spend a bit of time on that emotion, allow that emotion to pass through. All right, because emotions are literally energy in motion, all right? E multiplied by emotion, energy in motion. And when we sit with emotion and we actually experience an emotion fully and we allow ourselves to be in the emotion, very often it passes through. As long as we don't cling to the mind's stories that is telling about the emotion, and we allow ourselves to experience the emotion, we can process it, and the emotion passes through and we move on. So when you're playing live, you can actually process emotions and move on, all right? Now the challenge is you can't process them like in terms of, we've got to hide emotions, so we can't just be like, I'm feeling angry, I'm just gonna express it and let it all out. But we can process it in terms of, we can introspect our internal state, and as a result, we can get that emotion to pass through, all right? It's a skill to learn. I spend a full week teaching my poker athletes how to do this, but introspecting and letting the emotions pass through is what you can do. And the second skill is to have a state reset, all right? To reset your state, all right? That was written down. So when you introspect and you notice you're in a heightened emotional state, let's say you notice I'm feeling angry right now, and you're trying to process that, let's say spend a bit of time on processing that emotion, sitting with it, at some point, you don't want to linger in that emotional state, all right? So you want to leave the table, if anything, if you're in a compromised emotional state, and have a reset. Reset your state, move your physiology, because emotions are, they change less frequently. So if I'm in a negative state, it's not going to change as frequently, and it's easy to spot. So I've spotted that I'm in this emotional state. I now need to go, okay, I'm not going to dwell in this frustration or anger. I'm going to go for a state reset. Generally, that's move your body, do something physical, go for a walk, get some fresh air, get a glass of water, go to the toilet, whatever. Do something to reset your state, all right? And we can do that very effectively because we're able to spot emotions. We can introspect that when in a compromised state. As a live player, it's very good to know, wait a second, right now, I'm not in an optimal state. My state's compromised. Acknowledge that. Completely own it, scan with the body, acknowledge I'm feeling very agitated right now. Okay, I'm gonna go for a state reset. I'm gonna leave at my table, I'll come back in 5-10 minutes and reset myself. All right, and that's so powerful. If you can learn to do that, process and then move on, introspect your state, and then do state resets every time you feel like you're compromised emotionally, boom, you're onto a winner formula. All right, so that's two of the main skills that live players need to be working on. All right, then when it comes to the two key skills for online players, they're very different. And because it's a lot harder to spot emotional changes, it's really hard to spot, wait a second, I'm feeling frustrated. Very often, online players will first of all notice deviations in their strategy. All right, so for example, myself, I used to notice when I was agitated or frustrated, I'd play quicker. I wouldn't notice the agitation in my body. I'd notice, playing quicker. When I started to notice I was playing quicker, I could then take a step back and go, I'm agitated because I noticed playing quicker, all right? So for online players, because things are happening so fast, you haven't got as much time to introspect and check your emotional state. You've got to get good at spotting the warning signs that your emotions have been compromised. For some players, that's playing too wide. For some, it's a light call down that you wouldn't have made. For some, it's like, bluffing too much. There's certain things that happen in your strategy. I'd say spot the warning signs. So you're in a compromised emotional state, but you got to spot the warning signs. It could be physical, could be what's happening in your body, or it could be in your strategy. All right, so spot the early warning signs. Now, because playing online is so fast and we haven't got as much time to process things, we have to let things go quicker. We need to actually get very, very good at reframing, all right? And reframing is every time something happens negative that's leading to an emotional kind of response, the minds get very active and creating this story. Reframing will basically put that story into context. So let's say I've just lost the third all-in in a row, and I notice that I'm deviating my strategy. Maybe I'm playing a bit wider pre-flop. I check in with myself. I notice, I'm feeling a bit agitated right now. Now I can watch the mind telling me, I'm so unlucky. Here we go again. 3 bad beats in a row. When's it going to end? I need to get good at reframing, which allows me to tell a different story, which will basically be something like, put it in perspective, it's only a bad beat. it's not the end of the world, back to the poker tables. It's either reframing or it's refocusing on something different, all right? But we need to get good at reframing. And this needs to happen in real time at speed, all right? So when I teach this to my poker athletes, we spend a whole week teaching players how to reframe away from the tables, all right? So we take the biggest trigger events that cause them the most problems, understand all the emotions that are coming up and the warning signs, so they get very good at understanding what their profiles are. We then go to the poker tables and go, right, things are gonna happen quickly and you're gonna be challenged, you're gonna experience these emotions, you're gonna notice the early warning signs, and we need to get good at reframing it. And the reframing is you come up with something that counters the initial thought, all right? So if I'm saying, oh my God, I'm so unlucky, I need to reframe that into, it's just variance. It's all good. If I'm feeling, when am I going to win? I need to reframe that into, this is just poker, let's just keep playing. So we need to get good at this on the spot reframing of situations. When we do that, because we haven't got much time in online games, we need to like default decide on what the reframes are. All right, so we need to, when I work with my poker athletes, we build out the triggers that they're experiencing, what that happens in their bodies and their mind as a result of those events. We then come up with reframes of how can we reframe and reprogram that meaning so that when it happens in real time, we use the pre-designed reframe. All right, so reframe is very difficult if you haven't done any work in advance. So if I say, just put that situation into context or don't worry about it, you'll go to the poker tables, an emotion will come up, and it just won't work. You'll almost be like you're trying to lie to yourself. But if you spend a bit of work understanding what's going on, and then you pick a reframe that you've already committed to, then when the situation comes up, it's like, this situation, which normally annoys me, because I'm feeling this in my body, and my mind tells me this story, I'll use this reframe that I've already selected, all right? So this is how emotional regulation works. You've got to use the reframes to override the kind of faulty program, I call it, that causes all the problems. All right, so we've covered a lot today, but hopefully you guys can see that there's a difference in how we approach our emotions if you're playing live compared to online. Main difference, online's fast, live is slow. This means emotions are going to change frequently in response to the environment, whereas they're going to change slow when you're playing live. This makes emotions easy to spot when you're playing live. You know when you're tilting, whereas it's hard to spot online. Players can almost like black out for 30 minutes and make a lot of mistakes on a lot of tables because they didn't realize their state was compromised. We can express emotions when we're online. We can't when we're live. We can process information because we've got time to process whilst playing live, whereas online, it's quick, let it go, let it go, let it go. If you can't do that, it will build and build and build. I know in one of Jared Tendler's books, he talks about accumulation tilt. That's because you couldn't let things go. Tilt accumulated up and up and up because you weren't able to let it go in real time. And the key skills. So key skills for live, introspect, get very good at scanning the body so you can spot those changes in emotional states, and then state reset. When you know you're compromised, move the body, get out of there, come back to the tables in a fresh state, right? In a more revitalized state. Key skills for playing in the fast online games are spotting early warning signs. That could be in your strategy or could be in how you're feeling, and then reframing. Quick reframing, all right? And yeah, this is one where I spend a lot of time working with players on coming up with the right reframes for that particular player in that situation. It does take a bit of work. It's not just like simple stuff, but at the same time, you've got to consciously be thinking, how can I put this situation into the right context so that the emotions aren't flaring up, all right? And once you do that, once you're able to reframe in real time, all of a sudden an emotion comes up, you reframe it, and all of a sudden the emotion drops, all right? So here we're processing, here we're reframing because the time demands of each are very different. All right, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, you're gonna love the free PDF I put in the description. Go and click on that. We'll teach you the 8 skills needed for elite poker performance. This skill right here is emotional regulation, which is the second skill you'll learn. I go deep into all 8 of them and how to work on them, which you're gonna very much enjoy. All right, guys, that's all for today. Make sure you smash the like button before you go. So plenty more come from me very soon.